Good morning, everybody. It's me again. It's going to be a little funny with the alignment here because I haven't gotten used to this self video taking yet. But at any rate, wanted to talk to you all this morning real quick about the subject, the power of today. Many of us got up this morning with a certain sense of taking what we had with us last night into today, taking a circumstance, a challenging situation, a mindset of being upset over whatever it is. And it draws me to the book of Lamentations. Love this book. Not a very popular book. Has a few popular tidbits of scripture, but not a very popular book. Most people you find, if you ask them about what book they like in the Bible, they'll probably say a gospel or Revelations or some other book in the Old Testament that gets more shine. But Lamentations is a great book. The word lament itself means to cry, to have a passionate plea of mourning. But what you find here and why I love it is because it's a switch and a change throughout the book from a plea and a cry and mourning to the answer for that plea, that cry, and that mourning. So we find here, looking at Lamentations in our own lives, is the writer has a whole line of all the stuff that's going wrong, all the stuff that's happening, all the bad things, what they've lost, what's died, what's been taken, what's been ripped and removed, what has no chance of restoration, all these things. And then in the third chapter, around the 21st verse, the writer says, I call something to my mind and therefore I have hope. What does he call to his mind? He calls to his mind the faithfulness of God. He calls to his mind how God has been a present force, a present active force throughout his life, throughout the life of the nation of Israel. And he says, this is what I'm remembering. This is what is coming to my mind now to make me remember that I don't have to be a victim to what I'm feeling. I don't have to be a victim to what's happening to me, but I can change my mind. And what does he say? He says, I recall the faithfulness of God to my mind, which is something big that we need to do, because every day I see people, believers and non-believers, who God's hand works in their lives. And what happens is we forget on a daily basis when something comes up that rattles our cages. We forget that God's been a God that's handled us, that God's been a God who's prepared us, that God's been a God that's blessed us historically, not financially blessed us, not materially blessed us, because that's so short-sighted and it's in a box. But God's been a God that's kept us when everything has been crumbling around us. But when we get into a hellacious circumstance right where we are, we forget it. And it's easy because we see what's happening now. But the writer says, I recall to my mind, and that gives me hope. I recall that faithfulness to my mind. And he says, new mercies I see. Every day I have new mercies. So in verses 21 through 23, we see a total paradigm shift in the way the writer thinks. And I want us to see today, April 30th, 2014, a paradigm shift in the way we think and speak, because God's faithfulness is renewed every day. Now watch this. I'm no scientist, but I do know every night things die in your body. Skin cells die, different things die, and you wake up with a new set of something in your body. Something in your physiological and biological makeup is new. So God says to you and I today, let this day be a day of newness, a new thought, a new perspective, a new mindset, a new outlook, a new something that attacks the challenge of the day based on the new faithfulness that God has shown. Now watch this. I've been with my wife for 15 years. I tell her I love her every day, probably several times a day. And the thing is that when I'm saying it, it's not that it's mundane and it's a routine that I say it, but what it becomes is a new expression of an old fact. That I've loved her for years, but every day I say it anew because it's a new time I get to say it, a new time I get to feel it. So the same thing with this, people. God says, you wake up every morning with a new mercy. You have a new recharged battery like you do on your phone. A new something every day to propel you into victory, to propel you into a positive outlook, to propel you into taking on the day solely based on the fact that God, through his son Jesus, has empowered us to take on every day with newness. So we don't have to fret, no stress. So take this day on with new mercy, remembering his faithfulness. Love you all. See you tomorrow.